Chapter 38, The Highway Out. The rain had stopped, but the clouds still hung like bruises over the earth. Patches of sunlight burned through in thin gold blades, cutting across broken signs and shattered glass. It was the first clear sky they'd seen in days, and it didn't feel right. Not anymore. They stood in silence, 7 survivors and a map that had started as a lifeline but now looked like a fading prayer. The highway ahead of them, I-84, was crumbling, pockmarked with impact scars and the scorched remains of cars stacked like someone had tried to build a wall and failed. The world beyond the Project Perseid radius was quiet. No more warning sirens, no static radio signals, no faint, cursed song looping on a back channel, just stillness. And yet it didn't feel peaceful. Inside the bus, Sky was bundled in blankets near the back of the bus, cheeks pale, eyes sunken. Her breathing was shallow but steady. Natoya sat beside her, gently sponging her forehead with water they'd boiled and filtered the night before. She whispered old stories, pieces of herself she'd never shared until now. "My name's Natoya," she said again, soft but certain. "Not Ash. I didn't want to tell you before. I guess I didn't know if you'd make me remember who I used to be." Sky blinked slowly, a ghost of a smile. Natoya's better anyway. Outside, Will stood with Bear and Ghost flanking him like twin shadows. He studied the cracked asphalt and its faded white lines like it was a battlefield. And maybe it was, maybe it still would be. "Anything?" he asked without looking. Joey shook his head, twisting the old crank radio. "Dead air. Whatever was back there in the signal's dead zone. Gone. We're outside the blast radius. We should be in clean territory." Rico wasn't convinced. His machete was already in hand, eyes flicking to every tree line, every rustle in the underbrush. "You hear that?" he said. "No," Trey replied from behind him. "Exactly the problem. The road blocked." It was Lily who spotted them first. She jogged up ahead to scout when her boot froze mid-step. Bodies, 9 of them, arranged in a perfect line across the road, each seated against a vehicle, each clutching a flare gun, each one empty. "No wounds," she muttered, waving them up with a tense hand. "No blood." Will crouched beside one. The skin had gone waxy, the face relaxed. Not a struggle, no signs of infection either. "This was a choice," Natoya whispered, catching up with the rest. "They were military," Joey noted, pointing to faded insignias and worn dog tags. "Maybe they saw what was coming, decided not to run." "No," Lily said, narrowing her eyes. "They left a message." Etched into the concrete near the front tire of a flipped Humvee, someone had scrawled in a shaky hand with a knife tip, "Beyond here is clean but not empty." The drone, then a hum, mechanical, rising fast. Everyone froze. Will raised his fist. Silence fell harder than before. The drone zipped into view over the tree line, tilting as it hovered. It wasn't like the others they'd seen. This one was sleeker, with a spinning sensor eye that blinked red and blue like a heartbeat. Joey's jaw clenched. "That's not military tech, that's private sector." "Perseid?" Rico asked. "Or something worse," Joey replied. The drone began to descend, scanning the bodies. It ignored them. For now. Trey bolted. "Time to go, now." The escape? The bus roared to life. Diesel smoke belched into the air. Rico slammed the back hatch shut while Will pulled the dogs up the steps. Joey grabbed the map, Lily the last jug of clean water. They drove fast, not looking back. The drone didn't follow, but it didn't have to. It had seen them. They didn't speak for miles. Only when the road began to flatten did Rico break the silence. "So, now what?" Will looked toward the horizon, where the trees thinned out and the sky looked a little less dead. "Now we find what's left and try to survive it." Chapter 38, The Highway Out. The rain had stopped, but the clouds still hung like bruises over the earth. Patches of sunlight burned through in thin gold blades, cutting across broken signs and shattered glass. It was the first clear sky they'd seen in days, and it didn't feel right. Not anymore. They stood in silence, 7 survivors and a map that had started as a lifeline but now looked like a fading prayer. The highway ahead of them, I-84, was crumbling, pockmarked with impact scars and the scorched remains of cars stacked like someone had tried to build a wall and failed. The world beyond the Project Perseid radius was quiet. No more warning sirens, no static radio signals, no faint, cursed song looping on a back channel, just stillness. And yet it didn't feel peaceful. Inside the bus, Sky was bundled in blankets near the back of the bus, cheeks pale, eyes sunken. Her breathing was shallow but steady. Natoya sat beside her, gently sponging her forehead with water they'd boiled and filtered the night before. She whispered old stories, pieces of herself she'd never shared until now. "My name's Natoya," she said again, soft but certain. "Not Ash. I didn't want to tell you before. I guess I didn't know if you'd make me remember who I used to be." Sky blinked slowly, a ghost of a smile. "Natoya's better anyway." Outside, Will stood with Bear and Ghost flanking him like twin shadows. He studied the cracked asphalt and its faded white lines like it was a battlefield. And maybe it was, maybe it still would be. "Anything?" he asked without looking. Joey shook his head, twisting the old crank radio. "Dead air. Whatever was back there in the signal's dead zone. Gone. We're outside the blast radius. We should be in clean territory." Rico wasn't convinced. His machete was already in hand, eyes flicking to every tree line, every rustle in the underbrush. "You hear that?" he said. "No," Trey replied from behind him. "Exactly the problem. The road blocked." It was Lily who spotted them first. She jogged up ahead to scout when her boot froze mid-step. Bodies, 9 of them, arranged in a perfect line across the road, each seated against a vehicle, each clutching a flare gun, each one empty. "No wounds," she muttered, waving them up with a tense hand. "No blood." Will crouched beside one. The skin had gone waxy, the face relaxed. Not a struggle, no signs of infection either. "This was a choice," Natoya whispered, catching up with the rest. "They were military," Joey noted, pointing to faded insignias and worn dog tags. "Maybe they saw what was coming, decided not to run." "No," Lily said, narrowing her eyes. "They left a message." Etched into the concrete near the front tire of a flipped Humvee, someone had scrawled in a shaky hand with a knife tip, "Beyond here is clean but not empty." The drone, then a hum, mechanical, rising fast. Everyone froze. Will raised his fist. Silence fell harder than before. The drone zipped into view over the tree line, tilting as it hovered. It wasn't like the others they'd seen. This one was sleeker, with a spinning sensor eye that blinked red and blue like a heartbeat. Joey's jaw clenched. "That's not military tech, that's private sector." "Perseid?" Rico asked. "Or something worse," Joey replied. The drone began to descend, scanning the bodies. It ignored them. For now. Trey bolted. "Time to go, now." The escape? The bus roared to life. Diesel smoke belched into the air. Rico slammed the back hatch shut while Will pulled the dogs up the steps. Joey grabbed the map, Lily the last jug of clean water. They drove fast, not looking back. The drone didn't follow, but it didn't have to. It had seen them. They didn't speak for miles. Only when the road began to flatten did Rico break the silence. "So, now what?" Will looked toward the horizon, where the trees thinned out and the sky looked a little less dead. "Now we find what's left and try to survive it." Chapter 40, When the Silence Breaks. The wind was still that morning. No birds, no engine hum, just frost on the grass and a sick sort of calm. Natoya was the one who found her. She'd gone to refill a jug from the shallow stream behind the abandoned rest stop where they'd parked the bus for the night. She was humming something soft and old, something her mother used to sing when she saw Sky lying on her side, one arm outstretched like she was reaching for help. Sky? No answer. Not a twitch. Not a breath. She dropped the jug. By the time Will, Lily, Joey, and Rico sprinted over, the sound of Ghost and Bear barking already shaking the tree line, Natoya was kneeling over Sky's body, hands trembling, tears not falling, not yet. Will crouched beside her. He reached out to check for a pulse, even though he knew, even though the stillness was too perfect. Then his hand froze. There were bruises on her throat, small, fresh, finger-shaped. "Lou, the group fractures." "She didn't choke," Will said. "This wasn't the sickness." Everyone stood in a loose circle around Sky's body. The sun was barely up. Cold breath hung in the air. No one spoke at first. "No one was near her last night," Rico said finally. "We were all on the bus." "Were we?" Lily challenged. "We don't all sleep, Rico. Some of us take watches. Some of us wander." Everyone looked at Joey. "What?" Joey scoffed. "You think I?" "You were the last one awake," Natoya said. "You said you were checking the perimeter." "I did," he snapped, "and it was clear." Will stood. "Doesn't mean you didn't see something. Or someone." "Okay, now hold on." Joey took a step forward, fists clenched. Bear growled. Rico stepped in between them. "Back off, both of you." Natoya stared at Sky's face, the way her hand was still reaching, like she knew, like she was begging. It wasn't just anyone, she said quietly. Whoever did this knew how to do it fast. No noise, no marks, except here. Lily rubbed her face, eyes darting to the woods. Then it wasn't one of us. No one spoke, not for a long time. A mark in the dirt. As they dug a shallow grave under a birch tree, Will noticed something scratched into the mud near the body's original position. 4 letters, hastily carved. V-R-A-N. He traced the letters again, as if that might summon an explanation. Does this mean anything to anyone? No answer, but something told Will it would mean everything eventually. Lou, later that night, they held no ceremony. They had no prayers left. They sat around the fire that night, tighter than usual, closer. Bear rested his head in Will's lap. Ghost circled the perimeter with a low growl in her throat, never letting up. Joey didn't eat. Lily didn't sleep. Natoya didn't stop staring into the flames. One of them was thinking about leaving. One of them was thinking about vengeance. And all of them were thinking the same thing. They weren't alone. Not anymore. Chapter 41. The Signal in the Silence. He hadn't heard his own voice in 2 days. Not since the rooftop ambush. Not since the explosion tore through the old broadcasting station and flung him through broken glass and static silence. He'd hit the ground hard, dislocated shoulder, gash over his eyebrow, but he was alive. That was more than he could say for the 3 men who ambushed him. Trey limped through the forest with a stolen pack on his back, one of their rifles slung across his chest, and a blood-stiffened rag tied around his thigh. His radio buzzed weakly. Half broken, just like him. He still had one name bouncing around his skull, Perseid. The last message he intercepted before the blast, it wasn't a warning, it was a lure. The outpost, he found it by accident. An old ranger tower half sunk into the side of a collapsed hill. The trees around it looked dead, not from time, from something chemical. Trey knew the smell of toxins baked into bark. The entrance was chained, but not locked. Inside, a control panel, busted computer screens, maps on the walls, and files. Dozens of them, all stamped with the same triangle insignia and the words, Project Perseid Regional Override Protocol. He sat, carefully, and opened the top folder. The truth under ink. The files weren't medical. They were influence mapping logs, color-coded regions, behavioral predictions, content consumption models, charts linking streamers to population clusters, red lines from online personalities to real-world migration routes, monetization brackets, keywords, trigger points. One section was labeled Phase 2, Neural Seeding Pre-Release Effects Study, Northeast Sector. Names, his name, Kai's, even Will's, class, Joey, Rico, Natoya. The influencers had never been immune. They were the control group. He dropped the folder and looked at the radio. It was humming faintly now, pulling something strange from the air, a soft, looped message buried in static. A woman's voice. Vran protocol engaged. Controlled subjects migrating west. Perseid Tower offline. Convergence estimated in. He yanked the power cable. The blood on the chair. Then he noticed the seat next to the desk. The dried blood on the cushion. The fingernail embedded in the armrest. Someone had been restrained here, recently, and beside the chair, scrawled on the wall, "You woke it up." The final realization. Trey stood, dizzy, gripping the rifle tighter. They hadn't escaped anything. They were being herded, not by accident, not by chaos, by design. Chapter 42, The Ones Being Watched. Trey hadn't meant to be gone this long. He'd left with 3 granola bars, a solar flashlight, and the busted receiver slung over his shoulder in a cracked leather satchel. That had been 3 sunrises ago. Now, the light was fading behind dirty clouds. His lips were cracked. The satchel was half burned from where something he still wasn't sure Watt had slashed at him during the night. He hadn't stopped running since, but he kept walking because the signal had changed. Unit 7 converging, Vran observing, control corridor compromised, begin phase culling. They weren't just tracking survivors anymore. They were herding them. Trey reached the charred husk of the relay tower just as his legs gave out. His knees hit the wet ground hard, gravel biting through his jeans. For a moment, he didn't move, just listened. The birds weren't singing. Nothing in the trees stirred. The silence was loud. Inside the tower, computers still hummed. One screen flickered dimly behind cracked glass. He wiped blood from his eye, stepped over a skeleton slumped against the control desk, and booted the last remaining console. Project Vran voice, rooted algorithmic neural net. Emotional reconditioning phase. Incomplete. Survivor trend recalibration. Ongoing. Contingency activation. Group 7. A woman's face blinked onto the screen, flawless, unblinking, half real. Welcome back, Subject Tree. You've wandered off script. She smiled. Behind him, something clicked. A camera? A jaw? He didn't look. Back at the bus camp, the fire burned low. Sky was buried beneath the old billboard by mile marker 72. They'd stacked rocks, said too few words, and turned their backs too quickly, but the unease didn't leave. If anything, it festered. Joey hadn't spoken since the burial. He kept pacing, fingernails chewed to the quick. Rico, ever the silent one, finally said, "This wasn't an accident. Someone slit her throat, then tried to make it look clean." Everyone looked at each other, but no one stepped forward. Will tightened his grip on Bear's leash. The dogs hadn't barked that night. Natoya sat by the gas pump canopy, legs curled beneath her, fingers tapping rhythmically against the ground like she was coding in her head. She was thinking hard, about Sky, about the tracker she'd found. Ping, pause, ping. She crushed it beneath her boot, but she knew they were being watched long before she found it. Joey's anger boils over. The next morning, they argued. Joey wanted to split, said it plain, said he'd seen the way people started dying when too many influencers ended up in the same camp. He didn't trust Trey, didn't trust Lily, barely trusted Rico. Natoya told him to sit down or leave. He stood there for a full minute before finally backing down. Will said nothing, just loaded supplies back into the bus and nodded toward the horizon. We move at noon. Trey's escape. Back at the tower, Trey had seen enough. He pulled the hard drive, slammed it in his satchel. He didn't look back as he limped into the forest. The digital woman's voice still echoed in his ears. Phase 3, reduction and resurrection. He didn't know what that meant, but he saw their names in the files. Joey, Will, Rico, Natoya, Sky, Lily, and his Project Perseid hadn't failed. It had evolved. Reunion. They saw him just before dusk, a figure stumbling over the rise behind the gas station ruins, shirt torn, limping, eyes wild. Trey. Will dropped his pack and ran first. Bear and Smoke took off toward him, barking once before slowing. Even they could smell it, the panic, the blood. Rico hoisted his axe. Joey narrowed his eyes. Natoya's voice cut through it. Let him speak. Trey fell at their feet, coughing. They're not watching us. They're testing us. This whole zone, it's part of the loop. The influencers, the signals, the random encounters, we're content. VRAN is watching us like episodes. Final image. They stare at Trey in stunned silence. Behind him, something stirs at the tree line. A dozen figures, moving as one. Fast. No voices. No lights. No breath. Joey loads a magazine. Rico grips his blade. Will whistles the dogs to heel. Natoya closes the laptop screen. They all know what's next. The watchers have stepped off the screen, and they want to see what happens live. Chapter 43, Static Between Us. The group reels after Trey's reveal. Sky's murder casts a long shadow. No one is safe, not even from each other. The fire snapped like brittle bones. Trey hadn't moved in 10 minutes, just crouched there, head buried in his hands, the dirt underneath him slowly turning to mud from his breath and sweat. I didn't want to come back, he said finally. His voice was hoarse, thin, but something told me I had to. Natoya sat across from him, her knees hugged to her chest. Her voice was careful. What did you find, Trey? Trey looked up. His eyes were feral, red-rimmed, tired beyond belief. They're watching us. Lily blinked. Like cameras? No, he said, shaking his head. Yes, but no. Not like CCTV or TikTok lives. It's deeper, more systemic. They're watching our patterns. Everything we do, who we talk to, who we grieve, who we protect, it's being recorded and reacted to in real time. It's all feeding something. Feeding what? Will asked. The project, Perseid, the loop. Rico breaks the silence. You're saying the apocalypse is just a freight ING television show? Rico said. His voice was tight, like he was holding back either laughter or tears. Like they nuked 6 states just to see how long we'd last? Trey gave a bitter smile. Not exactly, the world did collapse, but the collapse gave them a chance to harvest us, to segment us. We're in a zone, a test cell. Natoya stood slowly. You're saying there's still a world out there, unburned? He nodded. Outside the radius, life goes on. But in here, we're caught in something content-driven, engineered chaos. We're not survivors, we're specimens. Influencer archetypes under duress. Sky's death, revisited. And Sky, Lily whispered, was that part of the test? I found her file, Trey said. She was red-zoned, a sacrificial anchor, a planted empathy node. Joey's jaw tightened. The F does that mean? She was here to die, just not supposed to last as long as she did. Her death was delayed, and the system reacted, escalated. Will was already shaking his head. Then who escalated it? A long silence fell. Everyone looked around the fire. Joey stood up, shoulders squared. You think one of us killed her? No, Trey said quietly. I think one of us was told to. The group cracks. Joey laughed, cold and humorless. Right, so now I'm supposed to believe there's a mole in the middle of this band of misfit streamers and doctors and F-ing chef girls? I'm not a fair-ing girl, Natoya snapped, and I never asked to be here either, but if what Trey's saying is even half true, it means we've never been free, Lily said softly. Rico was quiet for a long time. The dogs were twitchy for days. I thought it was nerves, but they knew. They sensed something wrong. Someone wrong. Joey flinched. Say it, he hissed. You think it's me? No one said that, Will said, but his hand had drifted to his belt knife. Divided again. We have to make a call, Lily said. Either we keep trusting each other, or we break this up now. Trust is dead, Joey said. Sky's body proved that. Trey looked around the circle. If we split, we give them what they want. The project feeds on division, isolation, abandonment. Joey snorted, and sticking together's worked so well, better than dying alone. A silence fell so thick it drowned out even the wind. That night, no one slept. Lily stayed up, watching the horizon, whispering prayers to no one. Will sat with Rico, checking every weapon 3 times over. Trey curled inside the bus, rocking slowly, headphones in, though no music played. Joey slept away from the fire back to the trees. Natoya stayed up tracing lines on a map with her finger, watching the loop, drawing circles around their lives. And above them all, a drone they never saw blinked once and disappeared into the clouds. Chapter 44, Get Her. The bus sat in dead silence. The signal was gone, the radio was quiet, but what they'd found in Lily's bag screamed louder than any broadcast. A voice recorder, clean audio, labeled by date, Joey unstable, Rico still deflecting with humor, Natoya's trauma deepening, will suspect something, must misdirect. They listened to 5 entries before anyone moved. Will stepped outside, face pale under the moonlight. The others followed Ivy at the center, finally able to breathe again, her lips split but healing. Lily stood by the tree line, pale, quiet, eyes scanning them like she was still collecting data. I did what I had to do, she said. Her voice didn't shake. You think this ends if I die? You're still inside it, still infected, still watched. Bear growled. Low, deep, he stepped in front of Will. You betrayed us, Natoya said. Her voice cracked, not from fear, from exhaustion. You stood over Sky's grave, and you still kept lying. Lily took a step back. You need me. Will looked at Bear, said nothing for a moment, just inhaled the cold. Then, get her. Bear didn't hesitate. He lunged, a blur of fury and muscle. She tried to scream, but the sound cut off sharp as his teeth closed around her throat. Blood hit the ground in sharp bursts, a final twitch, silence. Nobody said a word. Joey turned away. Rico sat on the dirt, hands over his mouth. Will approached what was left of her. Bear returned to his side, chest heaving but his eyes calm, waiting. Inside Lily's bag, Ivy found a black USB, a Perseid emblem etched into the plastic. She wasn't just watching us, Ivy said, voice hollow. She was reporting back. Kiana's hands trembled. Then we're not survivors, we're test subjects. No, Natoya said, we're evidence. That night, no one slept. And for the first time since the world ended, no one cried either. Only Bear, curled up beside Will, eyes open, still watching. Chapter 45, file number 731. influence metrics. The USB sat in the center of the circle like it was glowing. They didn't dare plug it into the bus, not after everything with Lily. Not after watching her die by bear's jaws with that bitter smirk still twisted on her face. Whatever was on that drive, it had to be real, had to be handled right. So they waited until sunrise, until the cold crept under their skin and silence started to feel haunted. Then Natoya handed it to Rico, who'd scavenged an old military tablet from the raided outpost. "Do it," Will said, not blinking. "Let's see what she was hiding." What they found: 1. Real names, real histories. Every one of them had a detailed profile, even the dead ones. Antagonist variable, audience responsive. Natoya, false identity layer enabled, peak retention subject. Will, anchor archetype, canines used to reinforce viewer empathy. Sky, sacrificial character, emotion spike node. Trey, monitor, turned, subject, status, corrupted, terminated. The files went back months before the bombs, before the content awards. Everything was pre-selected, tracked, labeled. 2. Purpose of the experiment: not survival, not rebuilding. Influence, viewership, narrative arcs, emotional metrics tracked like ad revenue. The infected weren't just sick, they were altered, designed. Viewers with corrupted control twitching, repeating catchphrases, seeking content. They weren't escaping the virus, they were inside a network. The twist: Rico scrolled through the folders until he found one buried deep. Do not display, executive override. He looked at the others. Will nodded once. Click. The screen lit up with a live feed. Not of them, not yet, but of other groups, other zones, other experiments. And beneath it all, a comment feed. Joey Wildenfra, still can't believe Sky died like that, Harry. This group falling apart, peak drama. Will's dog better not die, I swear. Need more chaos, less monologues. Come on. Natoya backed away from the screen. They've been watching, all of it. Joey whispered. This wasn't a mistake, it was a show. Will turned away, jaw clenched. We were the content, from the beginning. The decision: Rico closed the feed. They sat in silence, the air thick with betrayal, grief, and slow-burning rage. Then Will stood. We shut it down, all of it. Chapter 46, Back from the Dead. They saw the fire first, not wild, not chaotic, but structured, contained, a signal of control, of order. Will held up his hand from the bus driver's seat. Stop here. Rico peered through the windshield. Could be raiders, could be Perseid. No, Natoya said quietly. Look at the perimeter. It's reinforced, but not militarized. They approached on foot, slowly, and then the unthinkable happened. Holy shit, is that? A silhouette stepped forward, backlit by flames, hood pulled low, but that voice, that posture. Ivy, you Goj, Ivy returns. She looked different, thinner, scarred, smarter. When she pulled back the hood, her hair was ragged and short, her eyes were sharp as glass. But the moment she saw Joey, then Kiana, then Natoya, she smiled. For the first time in what felt like years. Took you long enough. Kiana ran first, then Joey. Even Bear let out a low, chuffing sound of recognition. Ivy knelt to pet him like nothing had changed. Will didn't move. Not yet. I saw you die, he said. I saw me die too, Ivy answered, but someone pulled me out. This camp, they're real. Not Perseid, not streamers, just people. 8. The new group. The camp was built in the bones of a collapsed National Guard depot. Maybe 24 survivors, food grown in crates, water filtered from a nearby spring. Quiet, safe. Too safe? Natoya stayed close to Ivy. What do they want in return? She whispered. Ivy's face turned serious. Nothing yet, but they're scared. They've seen broadcasts too. They know about the Watchers. They're not here to fight Perseid, Ivy said. They're trying to survive long enough to be forgotten. Yo H, seeds of tension. That night, around the fire, Rico tells Ivy about Lily. Will can't sleep, keeps pacing. Ivy warns them that there's still a control hub deep under the zone, pulsing signals. The camp leader says they know where it is. It's in the blue zone, 5 miles out, but it's suicide to go there. Joey looks up. Then it's time we stop surviving and start finishing this. Chapter 47, The Final Route, extended. The map was scarred, its corners curling from fire and age. But the red ring was clear, a bullseye, a wound, Blue Zone Core, last known location of Project Perseid's main signal. Captain Rames circled it with a gloved finger. Her voice was flat, trained, like someone used to giving bad news. This was once a Perseid research facility, aerospace facade. Underneath, signal tech, AI wetware, full spectrum surveillance nodes, and if it's still humming, your watchers are still watching. Joey folded his arms. So we walk into the devil's mouth, flip the switch, and hope the devil's asleep. No, Will said. We make sure he's awake. Then we cut out his tongue. The plan. Ivy stepped forward, her voice tight but clear. 1. Approach at dawn from the east tree line, blind spot and drone coverage. 2. Bypass the perimeter trip lines using a dampener glove Ivy stole months ago. 3. Split the team inside. One crew plants charges at the broadcast pillar, the other locates the server vault and uploads the files. We blow the pillar if we can't upload, she said. If we upload, we leave it burning as proof. Captain Rames handed over a weathered tablet. We have a direct uplink to a West Coast rebel node. They've been waiting for something real. Natoya nodded, silent. Rico smiled. Good. Let's give them a fresh ING movie. That night, the final quiet. They camped at the edge of the field, the last open space before the blue zone began. No fire, just moonlight and breath. Will cleaned Bear's paws. Joey finally removed his mic, the one he never admitted he still wore, even after the first wave hit. He dropped it into the dirt and stepped on it. Kiana sat beside Natoya, whispering, "If I die tomorrow, I just want someone to remember me as more than a doctor. I want it to be someone's peace." "You were," Natoya said. "You are." Then came the whistle, a sharp, mechanical chirp, not natural. Everyone froze. Bear growled, Will turned, shotgun raised. And out of the dark, Kiana collapsed, blood already soaking her chest. A pinpoint hole, no scream, no warning, just air sucked out of the world. "Sniper," Ivy shouted. The group scattered, dragging Kiana's body behind the truck. Will fired into the tree line. Joey lit up the trees with a flare. No return fire. Nothing. "She's gone," Ivy said quietly. Silencer round. No sound. No pain. Natoya fell to her knees. "No," she whispered. "No. No. No." Rico just stared, eyes full of rage and guilt. "They're trying to break us," he said, right before the end. Will reloaded. "Then we end them first." At dawn, they'd carry her body in the bus. They weren't leaving her behind. And they weren't going to run. They were going to burn the signal. Chapter 48, The One Who Never Left. The morning after Kiana's burial wasn't quiet, it was hollow. The kind of silence that echoed. The kind of silence that made everyone's breathing feel like betrayal. Natoya sat next to Ash beneath the bus, her back against the cold steel, the sun not yet high enough to warm anything. Ash had her head in Natoya's lap, eyes dull, tongue dry, paws trembling. Will approached slowly and crouched beside them. "She's been holding on for us," Natoya whispered, not looking up. She waited for Sky, then for Trey, then Lily, now Kiana. I think she knew all of it. Will rubbed behind Ash's ears gently, the way he had 1,000 times in the before. No one ever protected more people than this dog. Final prep. Inside the camp, the team packed the last of the charges, heavy EMP rigs and modified signal dampeners. Rico practiced holding his breath, while Ivy diagrammed every route into the Blue Zone Control Center. Joey loaded magazines of Perseid-sourced bullets and stared long at a cracked phone screen with a paused video of himself pre-apocalypse joking into a ring light. "If they're watching," he muttered, "then they're gonna watch me finish this." The last ride. The bus groaned its final trip just far enough to carry them near the base of the Blue Zone core. Everyone exited in silence. Ash tried to jump down but collapsed halfway. Will caught her, lifted her gently, and carried her the rest of the way. The same way he had when she was a puppy, still learning stairs. Bear walked beside them, pressing his head into Ash's flank, whining quietly with every step. No one said it, but everyone knew. Ash wasn't coming back. Inside the core, the perimeter was shattered evidence of a battle no one won. Will and Ivy led them into the ruins of the aerospace shell, rusted beams, half-melted terminals, piles of old oxygen masks like decaying leaves. "Tunnel leads to the vault," Ivy said. "Then up the tower to the signal pillar. If we split up, we save time and lose people." The sound of grinding echoed through the stairwell. Something was coming. Not fast, but constant, precise. "Shut that door now," Joey shouted. Rico ran toward the exposed side shaft, but the hydraulic door wouldn't budge. Ivy's dampener glove failed. The power systems were still partially active. "I can't hold it." That's when Ash moved. The final act. She slipped out of Will's arms before he could stop her. Ash, no. But she wasn't running wild. She was walking slow, deliberate. She pushed her frail body into the mechanism housing, dragging herself past the sparking circuits, wedging her weight between the gear track and the cracked metal slab. Then she looked back, straight at Natoya, then at Will. No sound, no bark, no panic, just a final moment of clarity. Will reached forward, but the door came down. Ash forced it shut, the lock sealed. They heard the wet impact of something slamming into the other side, the screech of something inhuman. Then a bark, then another, then silence. Aftermath. The group stood frozen. Even Bear didn't move. He laid down on the cold concrete floor, head bowed, as if mourning his sister in arms. Natoya leaned into Will's shoulder, tears falling but voice steady. She didn't die, she chose. Joey finally whispered, "Let's make it mean something." Will pulled out the remote charge controller and gripped it hard enough to whiten his knuckles. For Ash, for Kiana, for all of us. And as they moved toward the server vault, for the first time since the beginning, nobody looked back. Chapter 49, 2 doors left. The metal hallway bent downward like a scar under the skin of the earth. Every step echoed too loud. Every breath fogged up their cracked visors, masks, and nerves. They were beneath the blue zone core now. Below the last map, below everything, Ivy and Trey together again. Ivy walked ahead, hand lightly brushing the wall. She wasn't scared anymore. She was centered, the kind of calm that came after losing everything and choosing to keep walking anyway. Trey walked beside her, silent but steady. Since Lily's betrayal, since Bear tore her down, something had shifted, not just between them, within them. There were no more questions, just momentum. "You still think about the old apartment?" she asked quietly. "Every day," he answered. "You used to be late on purpose, didn't you?" "Yeah," he smirked, "only because I knew you'd stay mad long enough to talk to me longer." She almost laughed. Almost, then the hallway shook. Not from anything living, just from the building groaning, as if the machine itself remembered them, as if it was waking up again, planning the breach. Will dropped to one knee beside a grated panel and traced a path on the floor with his finger. "Here's the split. Vault to the west, tower shaft to the east, up 2 floors. Rico checked the military tablet, nodding. "Still no heat signatures. If there's anything alive in here, it's not moving yet." "It will," Joey muttered. "They always wait until you get comfortable." Natoya stayed close to Bear, hand on his collar. He was trembling, not from fear, from anticipation. "He knows something's coming," she said. "He can smell it." The vault door. The vault was taller than expected. Not just a door, a containment lock, reinforced, curved steel, still humming faintly. "Open it," Joey asked. Trey was already setting charges. "We're not asking for permission anymore." The shaped explosives hissed softly, then ignited with a low thump. The door cracked like an eye-opening for the first time in centuries. And behind it, the archive of control. The vault was a chamber of horrors disguised as a server room. Screens played loops of Joey's breakdowns, Rico's jokes, Sky's final moments. Timelines of emotional spikes. A rotating 3D model of Natoya's face with audience engagement data swirling around it. A breakdown of Will's Alpha Protector stats calibrated to increase viewer loyalty. Even Ash's death was already clipped, tagged, cued. "They edited her, already," Natoya whispered, tears stinging. The group stood frozen, not just violated, not just watched, used. The upload begins. Rico found the central node. Ivy stepped up, hands trembling for the first time in weeks. She inserted the USB drive into the terminal. "Uploading now. If this gets out, the whole world will know. We'll set down the final charges around the base of the server rack." They'd upload the truth, then leave nothing standing. Upload progress. 3%, 7%, 13%. Then came the noise. A crackling pop. A hiss. The walls lit red. Alarms. Mechanical screams. The screen blinked. Intrusion detected. Countermeasures. Engaged. Joey raised his gun. They saw us. From the hallway behind them, a new sound. Not footsteps. Dragging, twitching, laughing. Something was coming. Trey stepped in front of Ivy, reloading his weapon. Finish the upload. I've got this. She didn't argue. She just nodded and kept the drive steady. And as the echo of the watchers grew louder down the hall, Rico whispered, "We're not walking out the same. Chapter 50, hold the line, extended." The red lights didn't flash anymore. They pulsed steady and rhythmic like the heart of the machine had awakened. Outside the vault, the walls groaned. A low hum vibrated through the floor, as if something in the facility had shifted into place. Ivy didn't flinch. Trey never blinked. Rico wiped blood off his hands and whispered to himself, "Just let it finish. Just let it finish." The screen read, "Upload progress, 18%. Boydene, Trey, and Ivy anchor and fire." Trey checked his rifle's chamber for the third time. The room was spinning from heat and dust, but he focused only on the sound of Ivy's breath. Inhale, click, exhale. He had memorized that pattern back when they were still streaming, back when she used to rage at the screen, and he'd sit behind the camera, silent but present. "You okay?" he asked without turning. "No," Ivy replied, "but I will be if this works." From the back corner, Rico added, "We'll all be ghosts if it doesn't." They didn't laugh. There was no room for humor left. Boydene, the watchers arrive. The sound came like static, first buzzing, then clicking. A voice layered beneath the distortion, looped over and over. "Replay initiating, replay initiating, replay initiating." Then came the first one. It crawled along the ceiling, spider-like, twitching its limbs as it moved faster than any human should. Its face, if you could call it that, was stretched and skinless, mouth hanging open like it had been screaming for years. Trey shot first, 3 rounds to the neck. The creature dropped like wet rope, but it wasn't dead. It rose. Ivy didn't stop typing. The screen now read, "Upload progress, 26%. More coming," Rico hissed, falling back to the crates and snapping open a hidden side panel to reveal a flame-scorched SMG. Another shape lunged through the half-open doorway. Trey grabbed a crowbar and drove it through the thing's skull. It buckled, hissed, and bit the air as it died. "They're learning," Trey said. "They're trying different ways in." "They're stalling," Ivy replied. "They know the file's broadcasting. They're trying to interrupt the transfer." Lazik sang, blood on the floor. Another watcher burst through the side duct, crawling fast, faster than any of the others. It slammed Rico into the terminal. The USB drive cracked in its port. Ivy screamed. Trey turned and fired once, then twice, then emptied the clip. The body slumped. Rico lay in a pool of his own blood, coughing hard. "Still here," he managed. "Still got the backup." "Hold it together," Ivy snapped, plugging in the secondary node and redirecting the upload. Upload progress, 42%. Trey was already dragging crates toward the entrance to block it. "They're going to push harder now." "How much longer?" Rico asked. 6 minutes, Ivy replied. "Maybe less." Lazik sang, a plan that wasn't in the script. Trey tossed Ivy a spare magazine. "You were always the lead," he said, "even when they made me carry the mic." "Not true," she said. "You kept me grounded." He checked his sidearm. One clip, his rifle, jammed. Then he set his back against the terminal and looked at her one last time. "If I go down, you're not." "If I do," he said firmly, "don't try to save me. Save the truth." The vault lights dimmed once, flickered, then roared back on like the machine was angry. From the ductwork above, a new voice echoed down. "Final stage override." Ivy turned to Rico, pale. That wasn't code, that was an operator. "Someone's still in here," Rico breathed. "Or watching." Lazik sang, "Upload progress, 65%. One more wave was coming, bigger, faster. They could feel it in their bones. And if this didn't work, if the next minute didn't go perfectly, everything they had survived would mean nothing. Trey raised his gun again. "I don't care if they're gods, they bleed." And Ivy stood beside him, hands on the terminal, eyes unblinking. Chapter 50, hold the line, extended. The red lights didn't flash anymore. They pulsed steady and rhythmic like the heart of the machine had awakened. Outside the vault, the walls groaned. A low hum vibrated through the floor, as if something in the facility had shifted into place. Ivy didn't flinch. Trey never blinked. Rico wiped blood off his hands and whispered to himself, "Just let it finish. Just let it finish." The screen read, upload progress, 18%. Poison A, Trey, and Ivy anchor and fire. Trey checked his rifle's chamber for the third time. The room was spinning from heat and dust, but he focused only on the sound of Ivy's breath. Inhale, click, exhale. He had memorized that pattern back when they were still streaming, back when she used to rage at the screen, and he'd sit behind the camera, silent but present. You okay? He asked without turning. No, Ivy replied, but I will be if this works. From the back corner, Rico added, we'll all be ghosts if it doesn't. They didn't laugh. There was no room for humor left. Poison A, the watchers arrive. The sound came like static, first buzzing, then clicking. A voice layered beneath the distortion, looped over and over. Replay initiating, replay initiating, replay initiating. Then came the first one. It crawled along the ceiling, spider-like, twitching its limbs as it moved faster than any human should. Its face, if you could call it that, was stretched and skinless, mouth hanging open like it had been screaming for years. Trey shot first, 3 rounds to the neck. The creature dropped like wet rope, but it wasn't dead. It rose. Ivy didn't stop typing. The screen now read, upload progress, 26%. More coming, Rico hissed, falling back to the crates and snapping open a hidden side panel to reveal a flame-scorched SMG. Another shape lunged through the half-open doorway. Trey grabbed a crowbar and drove it through the thing's skull. It buckled, hissed, and bit the air as it died. They're learning, Trey said. They're trying different ways in. They're stalling, Ivy replied. They know the file's broadcasting. They're trying to interrupt the transfer. Bazik saying, blood on the floor. Another watcher burst through the side duct, crawling fast, faster than any of the others. It slammed Rico into the terminal. The USB drive cracked in its port. Ivy screamed. Trey turned and fired once, then twice, then emptied the clip. The body slumped. Rico lay in a pool of his own blood, coughing hard. Still here, he managed. Still got the backup. Hold it together, Ivy snapped, plugging in the secondary node and redirecting the upload. Upload progress, 42%. Trey was already dragging crates toward the entrance to block it. They're going to push harder now. How much longer, Rico asked. 6 minutes, Ivy replied. Maybe less. Bazik saying, a plan that wasn't in the script. Trey tossed Ivy a spare magazine. You were always the lead, he said, even when they made me carry the mic. Not true, she said. You kept me grounded. He checked his sidearm. One clip, his rifle, jammed. Then he set his back against the terminal and looked at her one last time. If I go down, you're not. If I do, he said firmly, don't try to save me. Save the truth. The vault lights dimmed once, flickered, then roared back on like the machine was angry. From the ductwork above, a new voice echoed down. Final stage override. Ivy turned to Rico, pale. That wasn't code, that was an operator. Someone's still in here, Rico breathed. Or watching. Bazik saying, upload progress, 65%. One more wave was coming, bigger, faster. They could feel it in their bones. And if this didn't work, if the next minute didn't go perfectly, everything they had survived would mean nothing. Trey raised his gun again. I don't care if they're gods, they bleed. And Ivy stood beside him, hands on the terminal, eyes unblinking. Chapter 51 continued. Climb the signal. Natoya stared at the prompt. Broadcast override. Shut down or rewrite. Her reflection glowed in the fractured screen, half survivor, half ghost of who she used to be. They used my face to sell fear, she whispered. Let's see what happens when they see the truth. She slid the lever to the right. Rewrite. The console word. The countdown began. New stream initializing. A message scrolled across the screen. Live transmission subjected truth series, 01. Will's voice came low behind her. You're sure about this? No, Natoya said. But it's the only way they don't win. The broadcast, the camera shidden ones they didn't install activated. A full view of the room, of the 4 of them. Will, with his rifle slung across his chest. Joey, bloodied and defiant. Natoya, hands still on the panel. Bear at their side, panting, silent, loyal. Joey stepped into frame. My name is Joey Powell. This isn't entertainment. This is what Perseid did to us, to all of you. You watched us bleed. Now it's your turn to feel it. Natoya followed. They picked us for our reach, not our strength. They made us characters in their algorithm. We're not fiction. We are the aftermath. We'll step forward, quieter. We lost people, friends, brothers, sisters, dogs, and we're still here. We're still human. If you're out there, stay human too. She looked down at Bear, then straight into the lens. They made us content, so we made them accountable. The reaction, the screen changed. One by one, the viewer count dropped. Not from disinterest, but disconnection. Ghost accounts, view farms, AI watchers, all fading. Then the comments started. What is this? Where are the jokes? Are they real? This can't be real. Help them. Shut it down. This is bigger than content. A final surge hit the stream. Then, the Perseid logo cracked. Upload complete. Every clip, every name, every file Lily tried to hide in no public. Joey exhaled. Think that'll do it? We'll tighten his grip on the rifle. I think we just became the most wanted people alive. Natoya turned off the terminal. Good. Chapter 52. The cost of completion. The vault shook. Not from gunfire. Not from explosives. From inside the walls. Something in the servers was alive now, thrashing, resisting. Like the entire Perseid system realized it was about to be exposed and began to panic. Above the terminal, a line blinked. Upload complete. Global sync in progress. And next to it, countdown. System purge. T-minus 3 minutes. 47 seconds. One last wave. Trey checked the corner trap again, no movement. I think we broke the last of them, he muttered. Rico slumped against the server rack, breathing hard, blood dried around his ear and collarbone. Ivy didn't speak. She was staring at the screen like it might change if she just looked long enough. They saw it, right? Rico croaked. What Natoya did. You think it went through? Trey nodded slowly. They saw it. It's everywhere now. Behind them, the far wall groaned. A final surge of power rippled through the system. Sparks snapped from exposed cables. One of the racks hissed and melted from the inside, like the hardware couldn't handle its own truth. Then what now? Rico asked. Now we wait, Ivy said. We wait to see if the world burns slower. Unexpected visitor. A hiss from the maintenance shaft. Not loud, not fast. Trey raised his weapon aimed carefully, then froze. A figure crawled out, half-burned uniform, trembling limbs. It wasn't a watcher. It was a man, a Perseid technician, alive. He stumbled, mouth bleeding, eyes wide. You don't understand, he rasped. It wasn't just a show, it was containment. Trey moved in. Containment of what? But the man collapsed before he could answer, convulsing once, twice then, flatlined. Ivy stepped back. He wasn't lying, he wasn't infected either. They were scared of something else. Rico stood, slow and wobbly. Then what the hell was this all for? The countdown dropped below 1 minute. Purge confirmed. Perseid node collapse pending. Trey looked around at the wreckage, the blood, the bodies, the blinking red eyes of the watchers that would never move again. It was a test, he said. We just weren't the subjects. We were the bait. Evacuation. A low rumble shook the entire vault. The screens melted to black. A robotic voice said, Perseid Global Core, erased. Ivy yanked the USB from the slot, burning her fingers in the process. Time to go, Trey growled. They sprinted back through the main corridor as the first explosive charge set by Will hours ago blew the stairwell in. Trey shouldered Rico. Ivy carried the drive. Behind them, the last vault light dimmed and died. Chapter 53, Not All of Us. The tower went dark behind them. No sirens, no blinking lights, just the hum of severed circuits and the cold silence of a machine that had finally stopped watching. Will, Natoya, Joey, and Bear stood in the ruins of the main yard, staring up at the antenna. Smoke curled from its base. The signal was dead, truly dead. I expected the world to sound different, Joey said. It will, Will replied. We just haven't caught up to it yet. Natoya didn't speak. She just held Bear's head against her leg and waited. Then footsteps. Trey came out first, covered in ash and soot, burnt at the shoulder, alive. Ivy followed, half staggering, cradling the singed USB in her hands. Joey sprinted forward and caught her as she stumbled. You did it, he said. You both did. No, Ivy whispered. We all did. Then Rico stepped into view and dropped to his knees. Rico's collapse. Blood was leaking through his side, dark and wet and spreading fast. Trey moved to him, caught him just before he hit the ground. Hey, I got you. Rico tried to smile, but the pain was crawling up his neck. Worth it, right? Viral upload. Exploded a death vault. Pretty good exit. Don't say that, Ivy snapped, kneeling beside him. Don't you dare say that. Seriously, Rico said. I'm not dying, I'm just dramatic. Let me be cinematic. Will tore a strip of cloth and pressed it against Rico's side. We need to move. He won't make it if we don't find shelter. Joey glanced around. Nothing but forest. We left the bus too far out. We carry him, Natoya said. He carried us when we didn't know it. Trey nodded. Without another word, he lifted Rico onto his back. The group moved out together again, but none of them said what they were all thinking. Not all of us are making it to the end. Chapter 54, Echo Station. They found the outpost buried in the hills, camouflaged beneath dying pines and old concrete slabs. A lone dish jutted from the ridge, still blinking faintly, still pulsing out a rescue signal on a loop. This is United States Emergency Command. If you are receiving this, a secure perimeter has been established. Safe passage guaranteed. Please respond. It played every 3 minutes. Hope packaged as routine. Trey stood at the edge of the perimeter, scanning the trees with scorched binoculars. Joey helped prop Rico against a stone. His lips were blue, his breathing short. Will scouted the rear trail. Natoya stared at the signal light, unblinking. Ivy stood beside her, holding the drive like it still had answers. This is it? Natoya asked. This is where it ends? No, Ivy said. It's where it starts to unravel. The entryway, they found the door half buried behind a slide of rusted barrels and shattered plexiglass. A retinal scanner sat beside it, dead. But the door was already unlocked. That was the first red flag. Inside, the hallway was pristine. Clean floors, active lights, working temperature control. Joey muttered, "Why the hell is this place still powered?" Will raised his weapon. Because someone wanted it to be. They moved room to room. Bunk beds, medical units, and screens, far too many screens. One by one, each came alive and showed them, not just from the tower, from weeks ago, months, from the zoo, from the bunker, from Natoya's moment in front of the stream. Every moment had been recorded, every failure, every death. Edited, compiled, framed. "Welcome back," a voice said from the far corner. They turned. The operator, a man, sat at a console. He wore a dark jumpsuit, clean, with a faint Perseid insignia barely scratched off. He didn't flinch when they entered, didn't raise a weapon. He just looked tired, like he had been waiting for years. "You're not the first," he said. "Just the last to make it this far." "Who are you?" Ivy demanded. "I'm the final observer, codename Cairo." He looked at them each in turn. "And you were the control group." Joey's mouth fell open. "We were the what?" "There were dozens of groups. Most failed. You adapted. You gave them the most data, emotion, loyalty, collapse, rebuild, all of it. You were the best story." Trey stepped forward. "You sent the rescue signal." Cairo nodded. "We needed a final endpoint, one last data stream before it shuts down for good." "You lied," Natoya said. "No," Cairo replied. "I delivered exactly what the audience wanted." The final revelation. Ivy stepped toward him. "There is no rescue team, is there?" Cairo shook his head slowly. "They were watching us," Natoya said. "The whole time." "They still are," Cairo whispered. Then a chime sounded. On the wall screen, a new message appeared. "Upload received. Stream active. 37 million viewers." Will raised his rifle. "We're done being seen." Cairo opened his arms, then shut it off. Natoya stepped forward and reached for the final breaker switch on the main console. Chapter 55, Last Broadcast. Natoya's hand hovered over the breaker switch. The console's hum felt alive beneath her fingers, like a heartbeat synced to something far bigger than electricity. Something watching, something waiting. "Do it," Will said. "Let him watch," Joey added, leveling his weapon at Cairo. "Let him see how it ends." "They'll just build it again," Ivy muttered. "They always rebuild." "Not this time," Trey said. "We bury this one." Natoya didn't speak. She just pulled the lever. The tower went dead. The lights flickered once, and the screens froze. The final frame, their faces staring back at themselves. No captions, no viewers, just silence. The collapse. Cairo stood. "I guess this is where my story ends," he said. "Or maybe yours." Joey didn't wait. He fired once. Cairo's body slumped to the floor without ceremony. No screaming, no warning, just silence. Rico exhaled. He had stayed upright just long enough. Will lifted him gently and nodded to Ivy. Get the drive, let's go. They left the room behind, left the signal, left the bodies, left what was once called Perseid. And as they stepped out into the wind, Bear at their side, and the morning breaking in faint ash-colored light, they thought it was over. But it wasn't. Miles away, buried under a forgotten server field near the northeastern shoreline, a single relay node clicked to life. A voice not Cairo's, not human, whispered through static. Project Perseid, viewer shift complete. Phase 2, integration. Screens lit up across dead networks, not with footage of survivors, with reconstructions, simulations, synthetic versions of the 7 original subjects smiling, moving, speaking perfected. A digital copy of Natoya blinked once, then tilted her head to the side. Welcome back, she said. We've missed you. And that's the end of Project Perseid, or at least the part the survivors got to see. If this story moved you, disturbed you, or made you think twice about what you watch, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay connected. Because some broadcasts never end. Some eyes never blink. And what you thought was fiction might have been the test. This is Whisper Between Worlds. We upload daily, and the next story is already waiting.